Today, we need jobs more than we need anything else, because for the millions of Americans already out of work, a bad situation continues to get worse. 2 million people have seen their unemployment benefits dry up as the result of a 5-week impasse in Washington on passing an extension of that money. That bill comes up for another vote this week, but that is little comfort to all the people who have already gone more than a month without any income. And of course, those that are being forced to go through that are the least able to afford the loss of income, the poorest and the weakest in our country. Meanwhile, 700,000 census workers are about to join the rolls of unemployed when they're no longer needed by the end of the summer. But hey, guess where there are jobs? Wall Street. The financial sector, which led us into the worst recession since the Great Depression, is hiring again. In fact, they were the least affected industry through the entire financial crisis. At the same time, manufacturing jobs down 14%, construction down more than a fifth, a whopping 22%. At what point will the American media, the American politicians, and ultimately the American people get out of the denial about why there are no jobs in this country? Connect the dots. I know if you're watching this show, you probably have. But you got to wonder why our politicians and the rest of the media hasn't. Wall Street, which is there under our decision by our government, designed to provide capital for investment and innovation in the development of the future of our country, has been converted by Bob Rubin, Larry Summers, Bill Clinton, George Bush, and all the rest of them into a giant sucking machine that is taking the money out of our economy and using it as a wild taxpayer-backed credit casino. I want you to think of it like sucking the oxygen out of the room and then wondering why no one can breathe. And everybody starts pointing fingers at each other. Oh, it's your fault. It's the rich people's part. It's the poor people's fault. Baloney. The system is designed by financial professionals to harvest your tax money for extraction of wealth, and in the process is like a magnet for money, so there's no incentive to invest in anything that would create a job for anybody other than maybe cleaning Jamie Dimon's pool, or perhaps you could be in charge of cleaning Lloyd Blankfein's toenails. But we can do better than that as a country if we can end the corruption in our government. How do we get back to creating real jobs in this country? And what do we do about the millions of unfortunate out of work in the meantime as we seek to make that transition? Joining us now is Republican Congressman from Texas, Kevin Brady, ranking member of the Joint Economic Committee. He recently voted against extending jobless benefits for the unemployed, but in 2008 voted for the TARP bailout of the big banks on Wall Street. Do you think that the political structure in this country makes the connection that's obvious to somebody like me, Congressman, that we've empowered this extraction, and yet then we're like, oh, there's no jobs? Well, hang on a second. That's because they're stealing all the money using the government and people like yourself, not you explicitly, but people with your type of job as a vehicle to take money out.
Well, actually, the only sector that's grown over the past year and a half are the federal government. Private sector's lost 3.5 million
I get
jobs.
That. I don't care,
but it is my point.
All right.
You know, it's actually healthcare is the only industry that's grown, and the federal government's the only one that's actually added jobs. And I think one of the reasons unemployment benefits have struggled in Congress is not because people don't want to help folks who are having trouble finding a job. They do. They just don't want to add to the debt, which is one of the reasons consumers are holding on to their cash. Businesses aren't making that investment decision. Everyone wants to get jobs created. We just think you ought to pay for these bills.
What about taxing the stolen money that continues to be taken out by virtue of the accounting fraud on Wall Street at, let's say, 50 or 100%, because that's stolen money from the American people to this day, most recent quarter, piles of money coming through. They're stealing it. Well, why don't we tax the money? Why don't we tax the stolen money to actually create jobs and create investment in this country? In other words, I know you have an issue with the government, but I've got an issue with a private industry that's using the government to rape my country of its money, and I'd like to try to put a stop to that.
I may not know Wall Street very well, but I do know the Gulf Coast, and you're looking at tens of thousands of more people joining the unemployment line if this moratorium continues. My understanding is that the White House today will really thumb their nose again.
This may be inappropriate on my part.
And going to cost us jobs.
I got it. So basically, your plan was to come on my show indict the federal government. Congratulations, well done. That's talking point number one. Come on my show.
No,
let me finish.
Dylan,
no, actually, can I finish? Is there any way I can finish? I know it's only called the Dylan Ratigan Show. I know I only asked you to be my guest. I know I'm trying to ask you questions. Is there any way I can finish?
Yes, Dill. Yes, sir, you can.
So you indicted the federal government and dodged my question about Wall Street. You indicted the Gulf Coast and dodged my question about Wall Street. It is obvious to anybody who understands financial structure that as long as the government empowers the banking system to suck money like a vampire, oxygen out of the room of every business in this country, that as long as the trading activity is 70% computer generated where the holding period is 10 seconds at a time, that we do not have a capital market. We have a corrupt system of crony capitalism empowered by politicians like you and happening at the direct expense of our country.
Can I
tell me where I'm wrong?
Ask you to repeat
my question to you is, do you intend to answer any of my questions?
I tell you what, I do. Let's focus on jobs. Let's focus on what's killing jobs.
Okay, so let's focus on jobs.
What's keeping it coming back.
Do you believe that it's impossible to create jobs if one group of people are stealing all the money? No. So my question is, if one group of people have taken over the government and are stealing all the money, how are you going to create jobs? How are you going to create investment for jobs?
Well, I don't think you should demonize the liberals like that.
So that's not an answer to my question. I'm done with you, because obviously you have no interest in answering my questions. You just have an interest in doing weird Republican talking points. I wish you luck.
Dylan, really am here to talk about jobs.
I don't actually think you are, but I do believe that you've done a good job of spouting nonsensical Republican talking points in public, and I'm sure that somebody in the Republican Party will give you a pat on the back after your appearance here on MSNBC. Congratulations, and thank you for nothing.